Hi everybody, welcome to another Express review from the Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and if you can, please leave a like and comment on this video about the game in question or anything else that you want to say, give me feedback and all that, and if you want to check out the Patreon campaign, it's always running. I'm grateful for any support you can give. So continuing kind of a board and dice themed month at this rate actually. We did the Book of Rituals, then I did Tabanusi, and now I'm doing Origins First Builders, although I do believe this is the last of the board and dice games I have at the moment. This is a new game, not in the so-called T series of games, although to be honest, as we'll get onto, this game might as well have been called Torigins First Builders really, but it's not part of that series. There's not even the same designers that typically do it. This is done by Adam Kwapinski, and I hope I didn't butcher that name too much, although coincidentally, the same designer who also did Nemesis, which I'm currently playing at the moment underneath all this table leaves at the moment. So, you know, interesting to tackle this. This is a Eurogame based on kind of like aliens that came down and helped civilizations to build. I mean, this is the kind of myth, what is it, myth or folk's tale of history where we think, how did they build the pyramids? How did they build those things? Was it with alien intervention? Well, this one kind of addresses that. It's like, yes, it was. So you are building up a district civilization made out of these tiles, and the main mechanism of the game is you have these mothership spindles here with different values from 1 to 6, and you have special worker dice that you can grab. You have 2 of them at the start and you can get more as time goes on, but they come in different colors to correspond to the different motherships that they have. On your turn, you essentially take a die, and I haven't got the platform for it out, let me just do that. Here we go, nice little platform. Straight out of Coimbra these things are. Pop your die in there, although obviously it's whatever fixed value it was. And I decide I'm going to go to this spot here. And then as long as this mothership number is equal to or less than that die value, doesn't matter. Otherwise you've got to pay extra resources in order to go there. You then get to trigger one of the 2 actions that are above it, but if the die matches the color of the mothership, so say I put it here instead with this red die for red mothership, then I get to do a bonus action that's there as well, but these bonus action tiles are randomized on each game, so it not necessarily means that, oh, this tile will be over here or this mothership will be here. The motherships and placements will be different each game. And so every time you go there and do your action, you then have to turn the mothership 1 spot to the clockwise so that it means that the value increases. So it makes life harder for yourself and other players to go to that spot for the, until it eventually gets around to 6 and then loops back down to 1. There's no special thing that happens at that point, it's just it goes from 6 to 1. Your dice, however, at the end of a round, level up as time goes on, and then once they're on 6, you get to do both actions potentially, so they're more powerful, but then they will instantly become an advisor on your player board, which is essentially a die cutout sheet, and these can generate more points, but they also increase the power of, let's get them all out actually, all the player pieces. They expand your Archon piece, which is kind of like a special worker. Think like the Grande Meeple in viticulture. This guy gets more powerful as it goes on and ignores the various restrictions for going to a particular spot. But in terms of what you're actually doing with these actions, it's mainly one of 3 things. You are either leveling up 3 different zodiac tracks, which are essentially the chances to get control of certain special abilities at that point during the game, but also score points based on a Knizia style of scoring, which is the lowest 2 values, add them together, that's what you score. You've got a military track, which is essentially players fighting for the highest military, so that when you do attacks, and I use that term incredibly loosely, more on that in a minute, when you use the attacks you can get bonus resources and victory points based on who's below you, so the higher you are the more you get. And then on top of that you have the city tiles, which are laid out on this part here. It costs stone and wisdom in order to acquire them, and essentially you are building hex districts in front of you where you try to line them up in accordance with these district cards, which basically give you like a pattern. So I want a red, 2 blue, and anything else in a 2x2 grid. If you can do that, give yourself a bunch of points. There's only so many of these district cards out in the game though, so each one is going to be a different pattern, and of course everybody is vying for these. But on top of that, when you make a full district, which is a 2x2 grid, you get to place one of your dice in the middle of that district. It becomes a seat of power, as it's called, which will score you points at the end of the game, but can also trigger the effects of the same color type of building. It's all about color in this game, as most of these dice games are. The value is relevant for going to a spot, the color is relevant for, doing stuff with the city districts. And the game just carries on until various endgame triggers have been met, at which point total up your points and the one who has the most is the winner. Now, I had a little bit of skepticism going into this game because I didn't know what its unique selling point was. What's the big draw here? Okay, I get the idea of this turning little mothership thing, and yes, it's another game that uses dice in some way, without actually physically rolling them for the most part. And you're building a little city, okay, but what's the unique bit? What is it that's about this game that's going to draw me to it again and again? I still actually don't know the answer to that question, and that's kind of the big issue I have with this. It's not that the game is bad. I don't think this game is bad, but it's just another Euro. When I did the Tabanusi review, I said this felt like just another T game in the series. This one just feels like another Euro in Euro games. There's nothing here that I would consider unique. And you are only doing one of those three paths to victory. You are deciding whether you're going to go full on Zodiac, full on military, or full on cities. You cannot do all three. It is physically impossible. You will not have enough time. And even then, if you do focus on too much, you just simply won't score enough. I mean, take the Zodiac tracks, for example, here. The point values here go 0, 1, 3, 7, 11, 16, 23, 31, 40, 50, 60, 70. Bear in mind, you only score the two lowest tracks. They're quite long Zodiac tracks. If you want to get any decent amount of points in the Zodiac track, you've got to get them to a bare minimum of 40, all three of them, to get, say, 80 points for it. And even then, that's probably not going to be enough. You're going to need to really max these tracks. And if you're doing this, you are most certainly not doing this. You just don't have the scope. But on top of that, I just find that if you want to win this game, you've got to go for the districts, really. I've occasionally seen the Zodiac tracks win, but usually with new players who don't know what they're doing with the cities, once you kind of get the scope of this game, I've never seen anybody win by doing anything but full-on districts, because this is kind of where you can score a ton of points, not to mention get some interesting abilities from these buildings. Although even then, you're only triggering the ability once, and that's when you put the seat of power die that matches the color. So if I've got a district here that's 2 blue, a grey, and a red, for example, then great, I could activate 2 of the blue buildings maybe, but then the other 2 buildings don't do diddly squat. And you're not necessarily going to get the buildings that you'd like for your strategy. I mean, here you go. Let's try it. Gain 1 gold. Wow. I mean, that's literally the ability on this thing. Just gain 1 gold. That's it. Seriously, that's the best you can do? But then you've got other ones here that, like, move 1 space on a track, move 1 space on another track. Gain something for each advisor you have, get 1 free 6 victory points depending on how many Zodiac cards you have. That's a bit more interesting, but these abilities aren't exactly groundbreaking, and for the amount of time that you spend to get these buildings, which is no short contest. I mean, you need 1 to 3 stone and anywhere between 0 to 3 wisdom to get a building. It's costly, and you don't get that many resources when you're doing other stuff, so you have to work a lot to not get what I consider to be a great payoff. Now, aesthetics, some is good, but there are some weird graphical design issues here. Firstly, in terms of the board, the artwork is decent, but really you don't see much of it. It's all covered by components and that. And down here, you've got this beautiful, like, multi-temple thing, like a forest temple, a water temple, a mountain temple. This looks gorgeous, this section of the board. But then this part where you've got the landing sites for the motherships is just plain green with a bit of rock in it. And then you've got the city bit, which is just any old city, and the military arena, which again doesn't look like much. It's kind of like all the focus was on this section and there wasn't as much here. But then on top of that, there are some graphic design issues which really do irk me and a lot of other players. Firstly, these motherships. These motherships are a cool thing, alright? They twist around, they're fine. But at a distance, if you are short-sighted, good luck trying to see what number is what on here. Constantly people are having to sort of look over, squint, or ask what number these things are. People have gone to the getting permanent marker and going through all the number etches in order to make certain that you can at least see what the number is. It becomes a regular pain. I'm also not a big fan of these tokens that they use for the resources. So you've got the gold, you've got food, and you've got wisdom in that. They're just boring little tokens with a tiny little picture and 1 and 5 on them. And honestly, the amount of times I've taken the gold thinking it was food is ridiculous. They look nigh on identical at a distance, and so constantly I am making that mistake. Could we have not had some resource tokens, just some wooden tokens? This just seems like a bit of a cut price thing, especially when the artwork on the city tiles is really good, like really good. The backs for the farms, even just each individual building, if you look at it, there's a lot of detail and colour in these pictures, and they're really good. Problem is, the tile is quite small, so you don't quite get to see the fruits of the labour on this. And some of them are a bit more, detailed than others. There are some like the Fountain of Wisdom that looks beautiful with a waterfall fountain in the building on top of it, but then you've got something like the Granary, which just looks like a field with some crop circles in it. It's like, some are more interesting than others. But other than that, other than those blemishes, the production quality is decent. These are good plastic ships that do spin around, they don't get stuck, they don't fly out of the board. The dice, it's difficult to get dice wrong, but at least they roll nice, they're solid, they feel good quality. The tiles are good and thick. You've got a die cut player board, which again works well. And I do like these little cradles that you have to fit your die in. They're pretty sweet as well. The game quotes from 60 to 120 minutes. That's pretty accurate. With 2 to 4 players, that's about as much time as I would expect it to take. Less so with solo even. I think solo probably takes about 45 to 60 minutes tops because you only got 5 rounds in the training mode. But the training mode is punishing. Honestly, it expects you to get 180 points minimum in the training mode. The only way to get 180 points in this game is to take one of those things that I mentioned, particularly Zodiac or Cities, and spam the hell out of it. That's the only way you're going to get 180 points. Otherwise, you're going to lose it badly, as I did the first few times I went through it. I thought, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get 180 points? And it's because I like to do a lot of different things, I like to try different strategies, whereas this game likes to pigeonhole you into one route and just go with it. Not the way I like it to work. But you can, if you want, expand this with a solo mode that David Turksey has done, except annoyingly, it's print and play. Seriously? I mean, you're cutting price with all these tokens as well. You couldn't even be bothered to put the main solo mode in the game, in the rulebook. Seriously, why have I got to go on the website and print and play it? That just seems really cheeky, especially when it's not just simply print out a rule set. You've got to print out some extra little cards or like player sheets with it, and it's just like, it's hassle that I didn't really want to deal with. But I did it anyway, and I went through it, and it was fine. It's actually probably one of the easier solo modes to sort of grok and grasp out of David Turksey's stuff, because obviously David Turksey likes to do solo modes for a lot of complex games, therefore the solo modes are going to be complex as well. This one I actually found quite simple to follow, and the AI worked fine. Not, it doesn't simulate a multiplayer opponent exactly, but it did a decent job, and it's certainly a lot better than the training mode, So if you want to play this game solo, I recommend grabbing that print and play version and using that. Don't stick to the training mode. Once you've tried it once to learn the rules, you'll never try it again because it's just not worth it. But honestly, this game shines more as a multiplayer game anyway. Although, I use the word shine loosely. As again, it just doesn't, it's not gripping me. I play this game and I basically decide, right, I'm going to go Cities or Zodiac. That's it. I never do the military track ever now. I just find it worthless. I've tried it multiple times and I just find that what you get for it versus the amount of effort you have to move up on it and the small amount of victory points you get just isn't worth it on the military. You have to spam it like crazy to get a decent level out of it, and even then I've never seen a single person win with a military focus. It's Zodiac or it's Cities. Mostly Cities because that's the surefire way to get points, whereas this one is very dependent on other players. So every time I play this game, I'm pretty much deciding which one do I want to do, this or this, and that's it. And I don't deviate. The Zodiac powers are not particularly groundbreaking either. I mean, you only have some of them temporarily. I like the fact that you only have 3 of them in the game and there's like, 1 for each sign of the Zodiac. That's pretty cool, but the abilities are not, groundbreaking. I mean, pay 1 wisdom fewer for buildings and citizen dice from the offer. Every time you close a district or to have to add 1 to a value 6 citizen, gain a wisdom. They're not game-breaking abilities, they're just nice little bonuses. Mainly you're doing the Zodiac track just so that you can have 70 plus 70 points potentially at the end for 140 nice points. As I say, you really do need to focus on this stuff. So production quality decent, game rules fairly easy to learn. It's actually not a difficult game to learn, I'll give it credit for that, but it goes back to what I said before. It just feels like some euro. That's it. I don't dislike the game, but I don't overly love it either. I'm not going to suggest the game. I'm not going to say, oh, have you brought Origins or Torigins? Because frankly, this might as well just be a lightweight tea game for as close as it is while using dice in some way. I'm surprised it wasn't called something like that. But nothing grips me enough about it. I don't get enough excitement from just putting the die here, spinning this little thing around and getting an action that basically just says, get a tile or spend stone to move up a track. 2 of the 3 paths to victory in this game are just tracks. That's it. So you are basically saying track, or cities and towers, that's it. And the cities and towers are infinitely the most interesting part of the game. The zodiac tracks sadly just don't do it for me, and this is a waste of space on the board, frankly, the military section. It's just another track. So, and I wish that there was more way to do the building abilities. You know, some of these building abilities could be great if you could trigger them multiple times or frequently or really spam a certain color. But if you spam a certain color, you're going to suffer with these district cards, but then you'll do better on the towers, but then you only do so well on the towers. But then if you diversify with the colors of the districts, you get really good district points, but then you don't do as well on the towers. So, and I wish I could trigger these abilities more. It just feels like this is kind of like, oh, it's promising something that doesn't deliver. It isn't gripping enough. Not to say it's bad, but honestly, as I said, some euro. It stands alright on its own 2 feet. I would play it again if it was offered on the table and it was what people wanted to play, but I'm not going to keep it. I'm not going to suggest it for like a game. And honestly, if it's like, oh, I need a midweight euro that I'm going to play, I can think of a lot of other midweight euros I'd rather play. And if we're talking from the same designer, I'm getting more enjoyment out of Nemesis at the moment than I was this. This just felt like, oh well, I've done it. Move along. I'd be surprised if this is getting talked about in a year's time. But like I say, not bad, not great. I give it an average 5 out of 10. It's average game, does the job, but that's about all it does, really. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember to leave a thumbs up and comment on the video. Was this a game that sung to you? Do you feel it's just another euro? Are there any other games from this designer you love? Did you get more enjoyment out of this than me? By all means, let us all know. Until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including the recent detail review I did for Tabanusi very recently, or if you want to check out a big long live stream on my solo games that I love, me and Mark Dainty did a live stream that you can check out there. Take care, and remember as always, it's only a game. Bye for now.